Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good luck sleeping. You're watching PNT. I'm your host, Silky Smooth. Up front this week, according to an article published by the Huffington Post, police officers in Alpharetta, Georgia had a bit of a shock when they pulled a car over for speeding recently. The vehicle had been clocked at more than 84 miles per hour, and when the officers walked to the car's side window, they discovered the individual in the passenger's seat was out of this world. The unnamed driver had apparently strapped a life-sized replica of one of the infamous gray aliens into the seat and had it riding shotgun during the drive. The driver never did explain exactly why he had the artificial alien in the car, but did let police snap pictures of his unusual passenger. The department posted photos of the alien to their Facebook page under the title, "Things You See During Everyday Patrol." While some have posited the driver might have been utilizing the faux friend in order to drive in the HOV lane, it bears mentioning that Alpharetta is located roughly 6 miles from Roswell, Georgia. Perhaps the pair were en route to the New Mexico Roswell's upcoming 70th anniversary of the eponymous UFO crash and took a left turn at Albuquerque instead. From artificial aliens to vicious venison, our next story takes us to the wilds of Tennessee, where footage of 2 bucks engaging in a fight has gone viral. According to sources, the so-called Battle of the Bambis was caught on trail cam earlier in June by officers of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. The video shows a pair of young bucks standing on their hind legs, attempting to smack their opponent into submission with their hooves. While it may look amusing to us, officials state that male deer often fight for dominance this way, rather than using their horns because the antlers are still actively growing and very sensitive. The so-called slap fight may seem harmless enough, but they are actually quite vicious, as the deer's hooves are extremely sharp and can do substantial damage. The video footage has been viewed more than 200,000 times since being released, and officials still decline to state if the deer were arrested for disorderly conduct. As of the time of this broadcast, no charges have been filed by either buck, neither of whom could be reached for comment. Our last story in our weekly roundup of the weird takes us overseas to China, where a flight was recently delayed due to good luck. According to the article by the Huffington Post and other sources online, a woman at the Shanghai Pudong International Airport delayed her flight for several hours Thursday after throwing a handful of coins into the Airbus 320's engine in order to ensure a safe flight, police officials in China stated. The elderly passenger, identified only by her surname Q, had been spotted tossing the handful of change into the engine in order to appease the spirits of the air, but ended up making passengers and ground crew angry instead. Crew had to order passengers who had already boarded to disembark in order to allow engineers to inspect the aircraft before flight could occur. The ground crew found 1 coin inside of the actual engine and 8 on the tarmac nearby. After taking the well-wishing Q into custody for questioning, police later released her into the care of family members she was traveling with. As for the plane, it finally departed, change-free, approximately 5 hours later than scheduled. And now, PNT is pleased to bring you our weekly report. For as long as man has plied the surface of the waters in his craft, there have been mysterious tales told of the region to the southeast of the United States, a region bordered by Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. An area where the laws of physics seem mutable, and the door to the paranormal occasionally cracks open. Long known as the Devil's Triangle to mariners, this strange swath of sea has swallowed ships, aircraft, and men for centuries. So grab your shorts and sunscreen, faithful viewers, as PNT takes you on a voyage to discover the top 3 disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle. Number 1. The Mary Celeste. December 4th, 1872, 1 p.m. Canadian brigantine Dei Gracia. Captain David Morehouse appears on deck as his first mate, Oliver DeVoe, informs him that the crew has spotted another vessel, roughly 6 miles distant from their position. The ship is moving erratically towards the Dei Gracia, and the odd set of her sails makes Morehouse suspicious. With a rising sense of dread, he makes for the craft. As the two ships draw close to each other, he sees no one on deck and his hails go unanswered. Sending his first and second mate in a ship's boat to investigate, the worried captain waits for their return. As the men draw close to the listing brigantine, they make out the name painted on the hull, Mary Celeste. The pair climb aboard and find the ship utterly deserted. The sails are in poor condition, with some missing altogether, and the rigging is heavily damaged. While the main hatch cover was secure, 2 smaller hatches were found open. The ship's lifeboat was missing, along with the ship's compass and the captain's navigational instruments. Moving towards the interior of the boat, DeVoe sees that the cabins are wet from the open hatches and skylights, but seem otherwise as though the crew had simply stepped away for a moment. There are no obvious signs of violence or piracy, and the ship's cargo of 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol is intact. The ship's log is located in the mate's cabin, and the final entry shows their position as more than 400 nautical miles from where the Dei Gracia had just encountered her. Unnerved, the 2 men return to their captain and report their findings. Captain Morehouse searches the area near the craft, but of the crew of the Mary Celeste, or their missing lifeboat, no trace is ever found. Number 2. USS Cyclops. February 22nd, 1918. Proteus-class cargo vessel USS Cyclops set sail for Maryland, carrying over 8,000 tons of manganese ore. The Cyclops is one of the largest cargo vessels afloat at this time, and has just finished her term of service during World War I. Her captain, Lieutenant Commander George Worley, keeps a stern rein over his crew and his craft. After suffering some minor engine trouble and fearing that the ship might be overloaded, Worley stops briefly in Barbados to ensure that the ship is loaded properly and secured. After checking things over, Worley sets out for Baltimore on March 4th, 1918. Worley, the cargo, and the USS Cyclops never arrive at their destination. Causing a flurry of media attention, the disappearance is reported in papers worldwide. Possible explanations for the disappearance range from bad weather to capture by German forces. Despite one of the most intensive naval searches conducted to that time, the Cyclops and her crew of more than 300 men are never found. Whether the USS Cyclops was a victim of bad weather, bad maintenance, bad design, or something else entirely, remains a subject of debate to this day. How could a 542-foot, 19,360-ton cargo vessel with an experienced captain and crew simply vanish off the face of the earth? Why was the crew never found? There were many theories brought forth to explain the disappearance of the Cyclops and her crew, but all suffered from the same failing: a lack of real facts and available evidence. Even after a 15,000-page report from the U.S. Navy probing the Cyclops' disappearance, most explanations have remained speculation. This unsolved mystery and countless others like it have only fed the strange aura surrounding the Bermuda Triangle. An aura that extends above the level of the sea and into the realm of the air. Number 3. Flight 19. December 5th, 1945. 14 airmen from the Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station climb into the cockpits of their Navy Grumman TBM Avengers to participate in an over-water navigational training flight. Flight leader Lieutenant Charles Carroll takes his men into the air at approximately 2:10 p.m. and moves out east over the waters of the Bermuda Triangle. For nearly 40 minutes, the men practice navigation and bombing runs over nearby Hen and Chicken Shoals before moving on to the final leg of their exercise and returning to base. Lieutenant Robert F. Cox is waiting on the base airstrip with his own group of students, ready to begin the same mission, when transmissions from the flight in the air crackle over his radio. Cox listens as an unidentified airman requests a compass reading from fellow flight group member, U.S. Marine Captain Edward Powers. Powers, sounding shaken, states, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." Cox picks up his radio and requests that the unidentified person calling Lieutenant Powers identify himself so someone can help you. Cox is immediately inundated with radio messages from the other airmen, each reporting that their compasses have stopped functioning. An airman named Taylor reports, "Both of my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale." Cox informs the NAS that the aircraft are lost and attempts to give directions to the pilots, who are now hopelessly disoriented. Frantically attempting to determine their positions, the pilots are unable to orient themselves due to the worsening weather conditions and malfunctioning compasses. Running low on fuel, the final message of Flight 19 crackles over the radio at 7:04 p.m. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." Despite repeated attempts to reach the flight, only silence was heard. Despite an intensive naval search, the planes and members of Flight 19 are never seen again. Curiously, one of the Navy PBM-5 Mariner aircraft with over a dozen airmen aboard, dispatched to search for Flight 19, also vanishes. After calling in a routine radio message at approximately 7:30 p.m., the search plane and the men on it also vanish without a trace. After intensive investigation of the incident, the 500-page Naval Board of Investigation concludes that the fate of Flight 19 was due to unknown causes. How is it possible that trained pilots, within easy sight and flying distance of the Florida coastline, became so disoriented that they could not determine their positions? What was it that made every compass on over a dozen planes cease functioning simultaneously? Did the pilots of Flight 19 vanish beneath the waves on that day in 1945? We may never know for certain, but it cannot be denied that the Bermuda Triangle hides many answers and guards them jealously. So what is causing the disappearances of thousands of ships, aircraft, and men throughout this strange region of ocean? How is it that many pass regularly through this area without incident, and others seem to be snatched away by otherworldly forces? Let's take a look at the top 3 explanations. Number 1. The paranormal. Since 1492, when Christopher Columbus saw strange lights and had trouble with his compass during the voyage to the New World, rumor and speculation have long pointed to legends of sunken cities in the Bermuda Triangle area. Technological remnants of lost civilizations, such as the fabled Atlantis, that perhaps might still be active somewhere beneath the waves. Some point to UFOs as the source of the disappearances, noting the unusual concentration of unidentified submerged objects in the area. Others believe that the Earth itself might be the cause of the strange events, with natural portals or rifts caused by the convergence of ley lines being found in the area. Is it possible that paranormal or extraterrestrial forces are plucking planes from midair and boats from the surface of the sea for purposes unknown. Number 2. The natural. Are forces more natural to blame? Could the strange compass aberrations be caused by the natural variations in the magnetic field of the Earth that come with being close to the equator? Or, perhaps, striations of highly ferrous rock that might lie underneath the seabed? What about the effects of violent weather common to the area, including tropical cyclones, hurricanes, and even sudden cold air downdrafts? Even pockets of gas caused by the release of methane hydrates have been proposed by scientists as a possible solution. Could a huge ship, such as the USS Cyclops, really be sent to the bottom of the ocean by the natural equivalent of a fizzing glass of soda? Number 3. The human factor. As we at PNT have observed before, the simplest explanation is generally the correct one, and we cannot overlook simple human fallibility. Is it possible that the main bulk of the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle can be attributed to simple human error? There can be no doubt that such common issues such as a refusal to file proper logs, plans, and charts with the authorities can lead to confusion or for vessels in trouble to go unnoticed until it is far too late to help the crew. Has our own inherent arrogance also been a factor? Stubbornness in the face of inclement weather is reported almost every time a hurricane appears. Those few who somehow feel charmed or simply refuse to believe that the storm will not magically blow around them, rather than kill them. Are other factors, such as fatigue and disorientation brought on by dehydration, a factor here? The sea has long been known to be a merciless mistress, and the conditions are harsh. Are these maritime mysteries simply caused by sailors failing to take proper care of themselves? Or is the truth, perhaps, a combination of these factors? In an area as large and vast as this is it possible that perhaps all of these explanations might contribute to the phenomenon surrounding the Bermuda Triangle? We at PNT invite our faithful viewers to investigate further and decide for yourself. We thank you for watching and ask that you click like, share, and subscribe below. I'm your host, reminding you to keep an open mind, because a closed one shuts out the truth.